Welcome to another edition of South Texas Crossfire. This is Attorney Joe Flores reminding you to join us each and every week right here on KTMV with the Lopez family. Special thanks to Carlos Lopez, my good friend. You guessed it, the Ted Turner of South Texas Broadcasting. With me today, a very good friend of ours, you know, community leader. You know him as our city councilman, Chad Magill. Welcome, Chad. How are you?
Great, Joe. Great to be with you. Thank you.
Well, we're here in Corpus Christi, Corpitos, and a lot of people don't know what's going on in the city, and we rely on Chad greatly to explain the issues that are most important, where your money's going, when you pay that water bill, when you pay and ask for those streets to be repaired, when the city code enforcement comes by your house. I mean, all these issues, what's going on in the next 10 years. We're going to be talking about that. Chad, tell us what's been going on in the city and what's near and dear to your heart right now and your constituents, because you're at large. You represent us, the whole city. Tell us what's going on in Corpus Christi.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I got to say I'm excited. This council asks more questions and more pointed questions of our city staff than I believe ever before. We've got a majority of council who are genuinely interested in what's the best for the people. And I think that's critical, and I think that's something we haven't seen in a long time. No disrespect to past councils, but I believe by asking good questions, the taxpayers and the citizens get a better result. So I want to start with that. I think we've got some good council members who are actually expecting more from tax dollars.
Well, and I know that there has been, through that discussion, through that pain, you know, I've sat on boards, I've been through, you know, leadership positions, and when you get good leaders together, there's sometimes some friction, but it seems like y'all are working very cohesively. What are the big issues right now that people have come out in droves on? I know the streets are one, but there's others, but you want to start from the top, just educate us, school us, as you will.
Right. Well, from the very top, you come from planning. And comprehensive planning, as we may not see it every day in our everyday lives when we pay the utility bills or ride our streets or expect, you know, storm water to flow away from our homes. Comprehensive planning is really our future, but it also dictates what we do now. And so in our charter, our city charter, which is the document that governs everything in the city, it is our core, it calls for a comprehensive plan. We have an existing comprehensive plan that needs to be updated. There's been this plan presented called Plan CC 2035. I've gone public and said that I couldn't support the Plan CC 2035 as proposed, but there are good parts of it. And there are good parts of the existing plan. The first thing that I'll say about the new proposed plan is it completely left out public safety. So if you're going to plan in core principle what is important for our future, certainly our police, our fire, our emergency preparedness for storms or hurricanes or any disasters, whether man-made or act of God. And then certainly you think about, okay, well, if we're going to plan for our future, what do we want to be in 20 years? And so that's more of a visioning type of question. And so what I see Plan CC 2035 being presented as is more of a visioning document. People say, this is what I see us being, but we need the real world practicality of saying and having policies in there that say we ensure adequate police and fire protection in growing areas, in newly annexed areas, making sure there's adequate coverage in existing areas. Those are key policies to make sure that are in the new plan that frankly weren't even included.
Well, we're seeing every week there's gunfire. God forbid, you know, that ever happened here, but in places like California, we had the same thing that happened with those children, unfortunately, in Sandy Hook. So why we wouldn't have police and fire, and thank both of those firefighters and policemen and policewomen, law enforcement, for serving and everything they're doing to outreach. But why wouldn't they put them in there? I mean, was it an oversight, or?
I think what happens is when you go out for community meetings and you have community outreach and you ask people, what is it you want to see in your city in 20 years? People assume that
There you
public
go.
safety is going to be there. And granted, I'm not saying that public safety goes away, but it should be one of our 4 top pillars. And when I say we build the foundation of this city on our fix and maintain our streets, water supply, wastewater improvements, and public safety. And they don't have to be in that order, but the reality is, of those 4, that's how you build your foundation. That, to me, all 4 of those are key infrastructure items. And public safety, to me, is infrastructure. We talk about the safety of our citizens through emergencies, police, fire, anything. Those are 4 key items that we should focus on. So to me, when you start talking about all the different policies that are in Plan CC 2035 that are far-reaching and visionary, there are some good items in there, but they have to build off of a foundation. That foundation to me is fix and maintain our streets, water supply, wastewater improvements, and public safety.
And you've got some stuff up on your site, and I
Yes.
think on your Facebook that can educate people on that. What is your website or your Facebook that people can click on, and that way that they can go ahead and learn more about this plan?
Okay, great, thank you. It's chadmagill.com, ChadMagill.com.
We'll get that on there, Dave. Right?
Great, thank you. Appreciate you very much. And I encourage people to read it. And the comments that I've submitted to staff already were 19 pages of comments. So I'm going to save everybody time. Just read the first page, the second page, and the very last page, page
Okay.
19. I'm going to submit some new comments, and you hear it first here. That I'm going to take and present what you call a model document that takes the good from the existing plan, takes the good from the proposed plan, marries the two together, and then takes some of the visionary items that I simply just don't agree with in terms of being our comprehensive plan, but they're important items. Let's put that into a visioning document. So it survives, but it doesn't become the rule of law in the comprehensive plan. So it's a guiding document, but it doesn't become law. And so I'm going to present that model document to city staff to then send to the Planning Commission and let them mull over it, look at it, pick out the good, pick out the bad, and bring it back to us in the spring.
And I think a lot of people, the reason I called you, and with such short notice you came, you've rescheduled
Always
things.
happy to.
We're honored to have you on. The other reason I came on is I think people are still very confused about the streets and other issues. They can go to chadmagill.com and learn more and educate themselves. Plus, on the city itself, the city council has a website, correct, that brings out some issues. Well, I guess it's from the city website.
The city staff, cctexas.com, yes.
But the other thing is that I think that some people that I talk to, when we go to restaurants or when we go out in the streets, they were very confused about one of our local papers. They brought out an issue, and it kind of sounded like they were on the attack a little bit on you, or calling you out on some issues. And I wanted you to respond because it wasn't just you. There were like 2 or 3 other councilmen that they talked about certain votes that had come on recently on issues. I wanted you to respond to that, and because when you read a newspaper, it's too late once it's printed. I always say never cross a guy with a printer and ink, right?
Right.
But I do want you to respond to that. Sometimes as a leader, you get jabs and you got to be thick-skinned, and they call you out. But I didn't understand the article at all. This was like 2 Sundays ago, and I was like, I don't understand what they were trying to say. And a lot of people said, when they print stuff on the city council, I don't understand what they're talking about. I mean, can you illuminate a little bit more?
Thank you. And it's important, just like you're saying, to be able to communicate in plain language. And I'm learning to get better at that. But the best part about whenever the newspaper or anybody else out there is critical of what I'm doing, the first thing that they're admitting to is that I'm doing something.
Right.
And that is the key, because I think a lot of the frustration we've seen in this community for many years is that nothing's happening. Right?
That's right.
So if I'm willing to lead and I'm willing to move forward, sure, I'm going to fail at different times, but I'm going to succeed as well. In order to improve your number of successes, you have to be willing to increase your number of failures.
Such as, and we're talking the successes that you've had. I want to hear some good news.
Yeah.
You during your tenure, what has happened you're proud of? What is the thing that you're most proud of?
Well, there's a number of them, but number one, there's a bond project on Staple Street from 2012 from Bronner Parkway to Custores,
I see it.
right?
Yes.
It's a major thoroughfare. There's 19,000 cars that travel that a day.
Big time.
And you've got Ray High School, you've got Del Mar College, you've got an enormous amount of single-family homes in that area. You've got multifamily. That is a very heavily traveled street. That bond project has sat idle for a number of years. And the reason why is because it's a very expensive bond project, and other bond projects are ahead of it. So if you don't manage cost on the bond projects ahead of it, then that larger project gets chipped away on, and then by the end of the funding, there's not enough funding left. And so earlier this year, we fought quite a bit in council for hours about bicycle lanes, no bicycle lanes. The bicycle lanes in that one section would cost us $1.2 million. So over 45 minutes in council, I debated. We won the argument. It was just a very spirited argument. It was not reported in the paper, but I will say this. Staples between Custores and Bronner is back on the list.
Okay, good.
It is moving forward. And
these are old streets.
Well, yeah.
These are ancient streets.
And you can ask any citizen in that area, and you ask them, would you like this reconstructed? You voted for it. Isn't it our commitment to follow through?
And let's
I'm proud of that, because you know, people can talk about huge legacy items or statues or buildings named after them,
Exactly.
but the reality is we need to focus on the fundamentals and just get the simple things done and build on those.
You know, when you know, we were having this conversation with a congressman, and I zoomed out and I said, look, 14 years ago, or more than 14 years ago now, 19 very deranged fanatics got into some planes and crashed for $500,000. They crashed into two of the greatest monuments ever built, and those are the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
So for $500,000, they made us spend trillions of dollars going to war, and they felt the wrath of the United States. I mean, we hit them with shock and awe. And I support our troops. I support our efforts of stopping global terrorism. But what has happened because a result of that is we forget about our infrastructure. We forget about our seniors. We forget about our homeland. And you know, that scum that passed away, you know, that we nailed, had said, that's what I wanted. I knew I couldn't beat you guys militarily. I want to break you economically. And so when you talk about we need to fix our roads, our streets, you know, people are resistant about taxes. But if we let them win by not doing the infrastructure, all of our own homeland is going to crumble.
Right.
You know, I mean, so when I asked a congressman that, he said, you know, I never thought about it really that way. Fundamentally, they're trying to beat us. You know, so when we talk about these taxes, we zoom back, and all politics is local. I don't want to get on my, you know, apple box here, but I'm just saying that when you bring this up, it's an unpopular issue, but we got to look. We spend trillions overseas and on bases and things, and that's great to prevent global terrorism. But what about our infrastructure? You said you're proud of that, Bronner Parkway.
Right.
What else are we doing so Corpus doesn't crumble?
Well, I'm glad you said seniors. We have senior centers that have been arguably waiting for nearly decades for repairs. You've got the Greenwood Senior Center, the Lindale Senior Center, and the Northwest Senior Center, all three being renovated in this fiscal year. And I'm extremely proud about that. That was not in the paper as well, unfortunately. But what that means for our seniors who've been
Nick,
waiting,
put it in the paper.
well, perhaps they're waiting for some visuals, to get some pictures of the improvements. That could be happening. But let me just say, I'm proud of that. And I even said in council that day, I said, this is newsworthy for a council to unanimously vote, and it took some debate, but we got to a unanimous vote. It took some debate. We got all three of those senior centers in year one of what we call a facilities and management plan. And so we've got a new facilities director, and Carlos does a great job. And he presented it as, okay, we're going to do one senior center each year for the first 3 years, and we're going to do some other city projects like City Hall and other projects too, because frankly, our facilities are crumbling within the city. So we need to take care of those assets. Those are assets owned by the taxpayers. We need to take care of them. So what we did, after quite a bit of debate, we won, and the seniors won. You got 3 senior centers being completely renovated. When I talk about it, ask your seniors at the Greenwood Senior Center or the Lindale Senior Center to look up and see that roof that leaks. I've been there, I've seen that, I've walked them. The Northwest Senior Center that had so much mold in it. I've walked these facilities, and you see them, and you see beautiful people sitting there waiting for something to happen. I'm proud that those 3 seniors. Yes, absolutely. These are people who served our country. They've paid their dues. This is their social gathering place. And you think about it in the city, what does that say to your seniors when you're not renovating a facility or even maintaining it properly? Now, I will say that the city staff and the people that work in those facilities are going to benefit, and they do some amazing work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are great people who do everything they can with what they have, very small budgets, and they work with the seniors very closely. So now they have a facility they can be proud of, and I'm humbled to have that opportunity, and I'm grateful for a unanimous council to have voted for it after some debate.
Well, and that's why I brought that up, because people will say, what does 9/11 have to do with local politics? It has everything,
Right.
because our money and our
Right.
taxpayer money, people, I mean, we'll spend trillions of dollars, and we're in perpetual war right now with
That's how
these
we won the
crazy
Cold War.
people. Exactly.
That's how we won the Cold War. We outspent the USSR, and,
Yeah.
and in doing so, it broke them to where they couldn't manage it, and so they gave in.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes perfect sense when you explain it so well.
Well, and the other issue that that I get a lot from people a lot is seniors, veterans, how they're going to benefit. The average person out there, I got fans of yours down Chamberlain Street, down there's right there down Longview, those
Right.
streets that you explained 2 years ago, that one got fixed, then the other suffered, and
Catherine, Chenoweth,
Catherine,
Hoffman,
Chenoweth,
yes.
Hoffman streets. How can we do something? Every time I pass by there on Chenoweth Street, I see the result of what you exactly explained. That there's crumbling, there's flooding, but the other one looks like solid gold on Foster. I don't get it.
Okay, so without getting too technical, if you look at like grades in school from 0 to 100, right? 100 being the best, you would look at a street and grade that street. Now there's 20 different factors called pavement condition index, okay? Any street that has a grade of 55 or above is eligible for maintenance, meaning it's maintainable. We can spend money on it to maintain and extend the life of that street, because if it's graded 54 or below, it's needing reconstruction. And there's different levels of reconstruction, and it's just like changing the oil in your truck or car. If you change the oil and you maintain it and you do that consistently, you're going to get a vehicle that's going to last you a long time. Well, we haven't done that for so many years on our streets that we have a large portion of our streets that are 54 and below, and well, you can't change the oil on them anymore. What you need to do is change out the engine of that vehicle. You have to reconstruct it, and that's a lot more expensive. Okay, so when we look at those specific streets, Chenoweth is a street just like my street that I live on, Texas Avenue. Texas Avenue is graded at an 11 out of 100, right? The very street I live on. I live it every day, just like the majority of the people that live in our city. So when you look at Chenoweth, Chenoweth was a street that was decent at best, but there was construction next to it on Catherine.
I recall.
Right? And it was a drainage project. So Catherine improves, but a lot of the heavy trucks went through Chenoweth and really degraded that street much faster than it should have been. And so you have great citizens out there, when there's a Morningside event and they have it on Chenoweth, and if it rains, they've got their garden hoses out there and they're pumping the water off of the street. And that's unfortunate. And I think we can all relate to that. We all see it in our own neighborhoods. We see our kids want to ride their bicycle on the sidewalk, and the sidewalk is too dangerous for them to even stand on or walk on or even ride on. So we all know the problem, right? So let's focus on the solution. We had a considerable amount of debate at council about the creation of the ad hoc street committee. And that street committee has a very clear purpose. And don't let stories in the newspaper or stories out in the other media confuse you. They have a scope of work that was approved by council that clearly states what they're going to present to us in next May. And as they present their recommendations, I was sitting at the Streets Committee this past week, and I found out something extremely important for us to all understand. We had the pleasure of having a gentleman who used to work for the city of Corpus Christi present to us, and he's running the program in Kingsville. All right? Paraphrasing that entire argument there, they're paying about $2.50 to $3 a square foot for overlays and seal coats of their streets. We're paying about $8 a square foot. Yeah. And so when you look at that, people ask you, well, where are you going to get the money to fix our streets? One could clearly say if we are more efficient, we get better prices, and we start working at a more competitive environment for bidding on street projects, then the taxpayers win again and they save some money. We're actually getting to real world costs. And that doesn't mean another tax increase. That means we get more for our money. And that's when I say I'm excited, because you have a council that is willing to roll up their sleeves, spend time and ask good questions. And we actually have a lot of good staff at the city who are trying their best and doing their best to produce those real world answers and solutions. And I see a path where we're going to save more money and being more efficient, that the last resort when we get to this next summer would be to go to property taxes. Now, I don't want to rule that out, but the reality is we've got an $800 million issue where we're going to save some money on efficiency, but the very last resort is going to be property taxes.
And you know, at a time where lawyers, politicians, and bankers are about the same popularity, low. Like you said, the grade 0 to 100, we're like at 15%. Okay, so we need some renovation. I appreciate you coming on. The people that are watching, the voters out there that voted you in, you changed from one area, and then you took a high risk.
From District 2 to at large.
From District 2 to the whole city. That's why I brought you on. You have a very key position. So from people from the south side to the north side, downtown, when they're asking these questions from me, it's not coming, necessarily from me, but they're very confused. So when you illuminate them like that, what issue do you think you get the most when people ask you questions out on the street, or they've read in the paper and some of it hasn't been? That's why I bring you on, for optional completeness, that legal term that says your side of the story.
Right. What
is the question you get the most from people with that context, that layer you said of, and that I said that, in a time when politicians are being called out a lot, and what is the question you get the most?
I'm glad you asked. It has everything to do with what you've brought up. Is when people read the paper or they hear something in the media, I get calls, I get emails, and people ask me the most. They say, Chad, I know you. What really happened? And that means a lot to me, that people take a moment, recognize the humanity in people who actually want to serve and do well, and they say, okay, I read this, but I know there's more to the story, and I know there's more to it. I'm sure there's a reason why. And I frankly tell people, look, if you disagree with me, that's fine. There are times when all of us will disagree at some point, but let's begin with the fact that we love this city and we are all working hard. I don't want to guarantee anything, but I will say this: the 9 people that are on council all love this city, and I know in their hearts they want this city to be better. Now I know we have different ways to get there, but the spirited debates, the questions, the 5-4 votes, those aren't bad. I'll argue that one 5-4 vote actually saved the taxpayers from an 8-cent increase this past summer, because frankly, that was just a move to spend a whole lot of money on streets without a plan. I mean, I don't want to take credit for it because it took a majority of council to support it, but I put the flagpole in the ground and said, you are not going to raise taxes 8 more cents on people without a plan. And I took a lot of heat for it, and I'll do it again.
Well, we got a couple of minutes before we take a break, but one big question. All right, people knock down, this is one that I get all the time. People voted against 2 years ago the Destination Bayfront deal, you were not in favor of it, you took a strong stand, then my question is, and I'm a lawyer, you know, I mean, I'm supposedly supposed to know what's going on. I'm like, then why do they block up these streets in our ocean view? If we said no to Destination Bayfront, right outside my window, they've been doing construction for like a year and a half, and we don't get to drive down our beautiful ocean like we used to right there, Ocean Drive, anymore. What happened? That we're it looks like they're still doing Destination Bayfront even though we voted against it.
Yeah, the 2008 bond program actually had a realignment of shoreline in it, and that was Bayfront realignment or Bayfront Phase 3. What you're going to see in the next, I don't know, couple of weeks, maybe a month or two, you're going to see a presentation from staff on the remaining funds from the 2008 bond program going into the park area and Sherrill Park. And if you look back at those funds, there was about, I think it started in about the $13-14 million range, and there was about $5 million left over from the street realignment that goes to specifically those items in the bond, which are park amenities, accessibility, improvements to Sherrill Park. And so what that means is the funds that are in that 2008 already voter approved dollars, those funds go into those specific areas. It's not Destination Bayfront.
Okay.
It may look like it, and I'll certainly hold the line on the fact that the city needs to spend just the money that's in that voter approved dollars, not going after any other funds. And I think that's really where most people are watching, and they're saying, okay, are you doing the first step of it? Are you trying to move towards spending more money on something that we frankly said no to? What I'm going to look in that project for improvements to Sherrill Park for our veterans. That was a very high priority of ours. Accessibility improvements, storage and or shade areas, and restrooms that we can frankly know that are clean, that tourists and our local citizens can use. Very fundamental, very common sense, and the funds that are already voter approved will go to that. If city staff brings back plans again that are in the $7 and $8 million range, I will remind them that I made a motion at council to limit the funding for those improvements to the $5.1 or $5.2 million that was left over that was already voter approved. Don't go after another dollar.
Well, I'm going to give you the floor the last 30 seconds of the program. Appreciate you coming on, but what are the times? I know that there are television programs that show the city council meetings. When can people watch them? And when does it come out?
That's a great question. I know that you can watch them live on Tuesdays from 11:30 a.m. until the end of the meeting. Sometimes the meetings we've had some meetings go until 10 p.m. at night.
And they're like on Grande and on Time Warner.
I believe so.
I just can't remember the channels. I don't remember the channel numbers, but they are there live at 11:30
on Tuesdays.
Okay, Tuesdays.
Every Tuesday but the first Tuesday. And then you can always go to cctexas.com and click on Mayor and City Council, and it says live video agendas, and you can click on those, and you can actually skip through different items. You can pick out which items in the video that you want to see.
And then people that want to come over there and watch you guys in action can go over there every Tuesday.
Please do. Come to City Hall. You know, every Tuesday but the first Tuesday. Starts at 11:30 a.m. The most important time is at 12 o'clock noon for public comment.
Okay, good.
Every citizen has the full right and authority to have their 3 minutes, talk about anything you like. If you talk about something on the agenda, make sure that you know that if you talk about it in public comment or on that agenda item, you can do either or. But it's your time, it's your microphone, it's your city hall. Come talk to us.
Great. And last 30 seconds, any closing arguments, any message you want to get out there to our viewers?
I'd just like to say it's not election time yet, but I'll say that I'm proud to continue to do the work that the people expect of me. And I intend to run again. And I got to say, this past year has been one of the greatest years of my life ever. We have a baby girl. She's 8.5 months old. Her name is Avery Gray Magill. And such a blessing from God has not only given me the strength and confidence to know that God has blessed us, but the humanity and the humility to understand how great my parents were, to have instilled so many great thoughts and lessons in my life. I hope I'm half the parent that my parents were, and God bless each of you parents and grandparents out there. It's simple thank you is just amazing, because I'm humbled. Every day I see my little girl, it inspires me to do more.
Oh, it's beautiful, man. It's
Thank
true, and I feel the same way as a father. And so we want to thank you for coming on, Chad Magill, your city councilman at large, and he will be running again in the near future. And to get more information, chadmagill.com, or go to cctexas.com to get involved, or go every Tuesday except the first one at 11:30. Public comment is at noon. We're out of time, but again, we want to thank Chad Magill for coming by. Also, friend him on Facebook. Learn more about these projects and these important things that affect your pocketbook. And for those people in the outlying areas outside of Corpus, get involved with your city council too. So we're out of time. Thank you, and God bless. Thank you, Chad. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you, and goodbye.